Good day. I am Sharon Garin. I'm currently a congresswoman of the House of Representatives. I've been a congresswoman for 10 years, and I currently chair the Committee on Economic Affairs. I am very optimistic. The Philippines suffered with COVID-19, but the beauty of the Philippines is still there. Maybe the way that tourism works is different and will become different, but the raw material is still there. It is still a beautiful country to see. It is with beautiful people in it, with delicious food, and people that are some of the most friendliest in the world. So our assets are still there. It is just about us adjusting to the new way of doing things, and there will be a new dynamics in tourism. And by the time that settles in, we still have what is beautiful in the country. So I'm very optimistic about it. The first and foremost is this is a health crisis that we have now. So we need to make sure that people are confident that if they travel, they don't get sick. Or we need to be confident. We have to have businesses more confident that they will have enough clients if they open their businesses. So it is a matter of building up business confidence as well as consumer confidence, and that can be done by doing a proper way of public transportation, travel, and accommodations, and making sure that the government has everything in place. Like, for example, when you travel, when you fly to the Philippines, how sure are you that you won't get infected in the airplane? Or like when you travel to Boracay, how sure are you that everything's in place? That all the hotels, all the establishments have minimum health standards. And that is the role of the government. The government has to build up confidence by making sure that everybody's safe when they do travel. I think the biggest advantage of the Philippines is we are an archipelago. So the boundaries are more defined, and then our waters are like our natural barriers. So we can do that. I mean, I'm from Iloilo, and we can have our own tourism bubble within the region in Panay Island, or even including Guimaras, in like the Visayas and Mindanao. So there are places that could work. There are places that it might be more difficult because, for example, like in NCR, it's quite difficult because the boundaries are not so defined, and it's more difficult to control, as well as it's ground zero, no? But there are places that I think if that works, then we can follow suit, and I think we need to prepare. All the LGUs as well as the national government has to prepare. We have to make sure that the transportation is well done. There is enough risk assessment, whether that is beefing up your health capacity or services, or beefing up your testing. But we just have to do risk management in terms that, yes, we open our economy, we open our tourism, but we need to make sure that everybody's safe and follows what is prescribed by the Department of Health. But yes, I am quite excited about what they're doing, and I hope they're successful, because if they're successful, then we will also follow that in our regions. I was part of the bicameral committee when we discussed that, and then what was allotted was like substantial amount um, for SB Corp, so that the smaller businesses in the tourism industry can borrow money in order to, whether to repurpose or to for added capital. And that, I think, is a very vital vital lifeline for many of the key industry players. It's not for the bigger companies, but more for the MSMEs, which are in dire need because the smaller your company is, the bigger is the impact of COVID. So this is a very good start because not only do you have to be, not only those that are accredited under the DOT, but also those who are registered are allowed. And right now, I think with the secretary talking to SB Corporation about what are the qualifications and how much can they give and what's the interest, and I think even no collateral loans are allowed. So hopefully their talks with SB Corp and the DOT will give good loan conditions for the MSMEs, and that will be very vital because let's admit it, some of the parts of the industry might not be applicable anymore, but some might have to repurpose, change the way they do business, or change their business totally. And then there's the second part is the cash for work for under joint with DOT, the Department of Tourism, as well as DOLE on labor, in which those who are underpaid or underemployed or unemployed can avail of relief from the government, but not amelioration and not just aid to all these families or all these workers. It is cash for work. They have to work in order for them to receive this amount, and this will one is help those families, but also help those companies na that are suffering right now, and they are the weight of payroll costs is so heavy on them. So this could be a relief for them as well if they in good conscience, at least if they do let go some people, at least there's a cash for work assistance by the government. So those are two things, and then there's also the 1 billion infrastructure, as well as the 2021 budget with the huge infrastructure projects that we have, including for tourism purposes. But this is a good start. We only have like 3 months left, September, October, November, October, November, December left of the year, and we have, I think, more than enough to help MSMEs and those unemployed under the tourism industry. There are many proposals and suggestions. In fact, we did have the Arise bill, which was one of the first stimulus bills that was passed in the lower house, but hasn't gotten traction yet in the Senate or in the executive. But that's one of the proposals as well, that we do regularization. Those tourism players that are not registered, regularization, moratorium on their payments, and whether it is for regulatory fees. And then also we were proposing also loans and assistance for all the small establishments to get loans, assist them to get loans, no, and then give them the cheap loans. There are so many, and then in fact, in this case, it's a multifaceted problem. In this case, we have had proposals of that, and still there are proposals, even in fact in Bayanihan, too. There's a moratorium of non-payment of loans, of new loans, until December, end of December. So there are things that they could avail of currently in terms of the loans that we're talking about. And in the concern about the LGUs, what DOT is trying to do now is do travel bubbles, if I understand, if that's the correct term. They are trying to do that so that there could be a safe passage among areas that are not infected. So that could work, but that has to have a good coordination with the LGUs. Fortunately or unfortunately, the LGUs in our country are independent, no? autonomous, and they do set their own rules, but it is up to the national government, IATF, and all the other agencies to issue their own guidelines, as well as coordinate with the local government units. It is quite confusing, but once the dust settles, I think, and when we realize, when we do have good proposals like what the OT has for travel bubbles, then I think that the local government units can work on that. Because as I understand, I think even Bohol is willing already, and we have travels to Amanpulo and Balisin and all the other islands or attractions that have their own airports. I think slowly, in a calibrated and practical manner, then I think we will get all the LGUs to work together and be more streamlined and more harmonized. Um, what are the other laws that are are being proposed? There are many actually, because we are now shifting towards a different kind of tourism. Now we want people to visit farms, or we want them to do ecotourism. So, or even sand and sea, no? Because those are safer areas for tourism to thrive. And so I think there are dozens of representatives and stakeholders that are proposing to convert many areas in the Philippines into ecotourism, farm tourism, or even for um, marine, I'm not sure how you call it, tourism sites. So there, we are aware. The government's very much aware. Even the representatives are very much aware of what is needed and what shift we have to do in tourism. So so the House of Representatives, as the lower house, we do have various proposals for that. For me, tourism is very much dependent, or any other industry is very much dependent on transportation. If we are not still in place in terms of transportation, there is no traveling. There's nobody to transport because there's no transportation. So first and foremost, we need to fix how do we do a safe, calibrated, and science-based, well-researched way of putting back the public transportation without commercial airlines, without public utility vehicles, without RORO or any other form of transportation. Any industry, especially the tourism industry, won't go forward. So we have to make sure that it is safe to travel for all the tourists, not only tourists, but all passengers. So I think all LGUs, as well as the national level, should have a very um, good standard in terms of public utility vehicles. Now, for me, for us to, in my opinion, for us to have a safe travel for our passengers, as well as our workers, as well as for travelers, we need to have more supply than demand. We need to have enough flights. We have to have enough jeepneys. We have to have enough taxis or buses to bring a person from one point to another. If we don't have enough of the supply of transportation, then we won't have a safe, calibrated, science-based way of transporting our people. Because if there's less supply, then there'll be overcrowding in all of our public transportation. I think that's the most basic, and I hope that we can all of us members of the House of Representatives and all of those in the executive can consider this so that we can jumpstart the the um, tourism industry, whether it's domestic tourism or international tourism. So I think that's the first and foremost for me to consider for all of us. Now, on the second part, I think we can reassess what is tourism for us now. Now, if we don't have enough people sleeping in our hotels, then what do we do with all those rooms and bathrooms that we have in all these tourism sites? What do we do with all our assets? We need to recalibrate or repurpose all of that. If we are just waiting for 2 years until things get back, we can shift to ecotourism, we can shift to farm tourism, but we can also shift to health tourism. If all these hotels, um, if some of these hotels would dedicate their services not just for as a beach destination, then they can also market themselves as a health tourism site, and that is something that will be needed because this is a health crisis, and this is a new norm. People are very conscious about their safety, their health, and their wellness. So it's something to consider, and there are many possibilities. So for our tourism assets. So hopefully we can. I think the congressmen, I know many members have been deliberating on this, talking about this. Brainstorming about this, and this is something that could be considered. I think repurposing some of our assets into something else, whether it's tourism or not in tourism. But we had to make do, and these are our assets that we have to make sure that can sustain the livelihood of the people that are involved in it. The Philippines is a beautiful country. It really is. I've been all over the world, and it's one of the most beautiful and unique places. I would encourage everyone to see, you know, go see the next town, and if you're done with the next town, go see the town after that town, and then if you can go to the next province and the next province, then um, because Secretary Berna is correct, we start we start helping ourselves. We start with domestic tourism, and and so far, historically and statistically, domestic tourism has always been the bigger part of the tourism industry in the Philippines. It is 110 million Filipinos. And if everybody just starts appreciating our own, I think it will be even bigger part of the pie of tourism. But before you travel, make sure that you don't have any symptoms. Make sure that you follow all the protocols and all the advice of the Department of Health. But if you do travel, no, if you do travel, and I encourage everyone to start seeing the world and start seeing our neighborhood and start seeing our country, because we need to help each other. It is up to Filipinos, no, it is up to our kindness and our patriotism. It is up to us whether we survive this or not. It is up to Filipinos to support the tourism industries, because if we ourselves, Filipinos, don't support it, then we are hurting ourselves. It is up to us to follow the protocols and make sure that this virus that is going around doesn't spread more. It's up to us to follow that and make sure that we are in a good uh, phase now. That tourism is starting with domestic tourism, with very cautious and very patriotic people that are traveling, making sure that not only themselves but the whole country is safe in spite of traveling from one end to the other. I really do encourage, when the time comes and when DOT says it's a good time to travel, then I hope that we can all pitch in. When they say buy local, that also means travel local. It's our problem, and it's for us ourselves to fix. And that's why the Filipinos will prevail over this tourism disaster that we have, because we will help ourselves.